Well, hello again, 8th graders. So today I get to do a video lecture with you guys about literacy phrases. And these are things that you'll want to know when we go through My Brother Sam is Dead and we talk about what happened in it. You want to be able to identify these phrases and these characters. So you guys can go to Google Classroom and pull up My Brother Sam is Dead literary notes. We'll be filling out the second column, which is the definitions column. So for now, you do not have to worry about the My Brother Sam is Dead column, the third column. Only the second. Okay, and I want to tell you guys right now that you can feel free to pause this video anytime if it starts to get a little bit overwhelming to try and write all the definitions while I say them. Feel free to pause the video and try and catch up with your writing. And you can rewind and go back and whatever you need to do to understand what the characters I'm trying to tell you are. Because as you can see on the page, there's different characters. So we'll start with the first one, the round and flat character. So the round character is going to be the character that's more developed. It's going to be the character that you know more about, the character that has backstory. So let's say that's going to be Harry Potter, if you guys ever seen that. Harry Potter's a pretty well thought out round character. They have backstory and personality in them, whereas a flat character isn't gonna have much. I try to think of another character from Harry Potter, the twins. The twins you don't really know much about, they're just kind of there. I think Harry goes to the dance with one of them, but they're just kind of there in the background. They're a flat character. You don't know much about them, they don't grow, they don't change, they're just there. So for a definition for the round character, you guys can write down that the round character is well developed and has a backstory with you can say that he's a well developed, the round character is well developed with a personality and a backstory, whereas the flat character is not well developed and they don't really have much of a personality. The next two definitions are dynamic and static characters. And I will tell you right now that a dynamic character is usually also a round character, and a flat character is usually a static character. So a dynamic character is a character that changes and grows, and yeah, they don't stay the same throughout the whole book or movie or TV show or whatever it's from. A dynamic character is going to grow and change throughout. Whereas a static character doesn't really change much. They just kind of stay the way they are. So you guys can write down the dynamic character changes and grows, and a static character stays the same. So you guys can see how a round character, someone you really connect with, will probably be the same character that grows and changes throughout the book. Whereas a flat character isn't really going to change or grow that much. So it's going to be a static. And I think you guys know what the next two mean. Protagonist and antagonist. So you guys know prefixes. Pro means either for or like good. Like you can be like pro-life. That's an example if you're for life. Or you can be a pro at sports. If you're a pro at sports, it means you're good at sports, right? So pro means for or good. And you guys know this, an or anti means against. So obviously it makes sense that protagonist is the good guys of the story and antagonists are the bad guys pretty much. So Batman would be a protagonist and Joker would be an antagonist. I'm going to warn you guys right now that in My Brother Sam is Dead, it's really hard to find an antagonist. So that's your guys' challenge. If you can tell me who you think the antagonists are, brownie points to you, because I don't even know if I can find one. So, after you guys write those definitions down, protagonists being the good guys, the winners, antagonists being the bad guys pretty much, we can go on to the next definitions. The memorable, there we go, and forgettable characters. It would make sense that that the memorable characters are the ones you guys connect to. They're the ones that you guys are rooting for throughout the whole book. And the forgettable ones are the ones that, like, their name is mentioned, and that's about it. So the memorable characters are usually the ones that are also round and dynamic. And the forgettable characters are the ones that are flat and static. So for more memorable characters, you can put characters that stand out or are remembered, whereas forgettable characters are characters that are in the background and easy to forget. I bet those are the simplest definitions you guys will have to write down. The next word is a plot line. I bet you guys have heard of this one before, but a plot line is it's what happened in the story pretty much. Here's an example. It's a blank plot line. But if you Google plot line, that's kind of what you're going to see. So if the story starts over here, this is where the story begins, and then it goes up, and it goes up here, and the point on the top, right there, is a climax of the story. And then it just kind of goes back down, and that's going to be the resolution. So I think the Paul Revere poem, not what actually happened, but the poem, the climax is when he starts jumps on his horse and starts riding through towns. But before that, he had to set up the lanterns and tell his friend and wait impatiently. So that would be kind of this part. He's telling his friend, waiting impatiently, gets on his horse, and starts riding around town. That's the big part of the plot line. And then it starts going back down of him riding through town, and them talking about what's going to happen next. And I would say that you could do a plot line for any book or movie that you see. Some are going to be harder than others. But if you guys will talk more about plot line and the plot line for the war later, and the plot line for the novel. So you guys gotta remember what a plot line is in order to do that, right? Yes. So that word is plot line. The plot line, the definition would be the events that take place in the story. That'd be the definition of a plot line. The next word is foreshadowing. I think foreshadowing is really cool because once you know what it is, it's easier to see it in a bunch of different writing and movies. Foreshadowing are the things that characters or the narrator kind of hint at happening. Like, they say, I'll give you an example from the poem, the Paul Revere poem, because I've read that poem a lot now after teaching it to all you guys. So, it says that Paul Revere was riding through Lexington, and he saw the blank and bare windows of the meeting house. And it says, they gaze at him with a spectral glare, as if they already stood aghast at the bloody work they looked upon. So that'd be an example of foreshadowing. The poem is saying, Paul Revere's riding through town, no one's died yet, but he's riding through town waking people up, and it says that the windows stood aghast at the bloody work they would look upon. It's pretty much foreshadowing, saying people are gonna die here in front of those windows, and if those windows were people, they would be able to see it. Does that make sense? Foreshadowing is when a story predicts what's going to happen in the future. Predicts or hints at what's going to happen in the future. I think I like that better, because sometimes it's not even as blatantly, this is going to happen, as much as, maybe this happened? So foreshadowing is the prediction or hint that something will happen in the future. And I will tell you already that there's a lot of foreshadowing in this novel. So if you keep an eye out, you might be able to see it. And we are already on to our last word. Hopefully you guys have been able to keep up with me, as I know I talk a little bit fast. But the last word is irony. I am sure you guys heard this word before, but it's a little hard to know what it means sometimes. Irony, an example of irony would be if, let's say, the people in charge of getting rid of rodents, like rodent infestation, the people who come and take care of that for you, if their office got overrun by rats, that would be an irony. That'd be ironic. Or if, oh, I can't think of another good example right now, but if something happened that was very opposite of what the character is expecting, or opposite of what you would normally expect would happen, or opposite of what the character wants to happen, those might be all examples of irony. So irony is the opposite of what the character or the reader expects. Like I said with the rat story, if the rat people that would come take care of rodents or rats or cockroaches, if they get overrun by rats and rodents and cockroaches in their office, that would be an example of irony. I know that definition is a little bit hard to understand, but that's an example of it. There's also something called dramatic irony, which, for example, in Romeo and Juliet, Romeo, like we all know that Juliet's not dead. Romeo does not. So he kills himself over it and all of that. I hope I didn't just spoil Romeo and Juliet for you guys. But that's a sense of dramatic irony, because we all know what's going to happen. It's that moment where you kind of want to get out of your seat and yell at them, but they don't know it. So it's dramatic irony. It's less of like the ha 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 irony. But so that's an example of dramatic irony. But the one I want you guys to write down for now is just regular irony. When something happens that is the opposite of what the character or the reader would expect in that situation. And feel free to write that in your own words if you want. Well, I hope you guys got a pretty good handle on what some of those words meant. If you don't know from after this video, or you think I didn't explain it well enough, please come and ask me questions. I will totally explain it better to you. So, I hope that made some sense, and I hope you guys are able to find examples of these while you read My Brother Sam is Dead. Enjoy!